the lane. 15, 10. Touchdown, Chargers. What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. As always, joined by Matt Money Smith. And we don't have a lot of guests on over the last year or so, but one of our favorite guys, Money, has joined the program this morning.
Yeah, I saw Jeff out at OTAs yesterday. Had a chance to chat with him, to listen to his insightful and salient questions posed to all of those participating in the pressers yesterday. And you know, you had the good idea of getting Jeff back in here, talk about kind of what he's seen through this phase 1, 2, and the voluntary OTAs. And of course, always a tremendous observer of what's happening out there. So why not, Chris? Let's lean on our man from the LA Times.
Let's bring in the great Jeff Miller. How are you, man?
I'm good. And also, I think it's very fitting that if you look at the screen, there's 3 names. You got my full name plus where I'm from, and then
right.
Chris, and then it just says Matt. Just Matt. It's all
Listen,
one name. Madonna.
Just
Sheriff,
look at
Matt.
me. I mean, look at me, Jeff. You know,
It's not even
look
money.
at Chris.
It's not even money. It's just Matt.
He's put together.
And that's more than enough, actually. You don't even
yes.
need anything. You just put your face on there, and it's fine.
Yeah, my face with my bad. I'm glad that at least you matched my hair. Chris is always freaking gelled to the nines, looking good, put together. I typically show up disheveled, appearing as though I don't care about this, that I just rolled out of bed. Not the case. Just my hair tends to not cooperate, and I don't like putting product in it. So anyway, that is not interesting to the people watching right now. They've already skipped through this 3-4 times on the 30-second skip. So let's get into it, Chris.
They love it. Hey, you know what? I wasn't there yesterday. Both of you guys were. Jeff, why don't we just start with you? Observations from yesterday, and then we can kind of dig into the overall picture, because we haven't talked to you a lot since Harbaugh's been hired.
Yeah, the one thing is, you talk about just observations, and the one thing that I noticed yesterday, and any Charger fans that are going to go to training camp in July, I would suggest one thing you might want to do, look at number 25 and look at his waist and down. That is a football player, okay? Junior Colson, the rookie linebacker, that guy's got a lower half on him. Just yesterday, he's off on the side doing some stuff because he's dealing with some kind of an injury. It looks like, I think it's something minor. I don't think it's anything big, especially in May. But he was off on the side. But you look at him, and that guy is so well put together. When Zion Johnson got here, I remember after the same type of this time of year, he comes up and he talks to us at the podium the first time, walked away, and I can't remember who was standing next to me. And I said, that guy's got the biggest biceps on the team. Like right now, he just got here. And I look at Junior, and I don't know if he's got the biggest quads on the team, but he is an impressive species to look at. And that guy, you talk about somebody to get excited about. I know you guys have talked about him on here, and with good reason. But that's just a real basic thing in these OTAs. So it's hard to glean a lot. What I like doing is these young guys, these new guys, just kind of look at how they look in a uniform and how they move. And that's a guy who just jumps out to me. He's just he's just so impressive physically. And his lower half it just screams NFL linebacker, and a guy, you look at him and think he could be in this league for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's just if you think about the rookie class, as a whole, well, not as a whole, but, a number of them, Jeff. I mean, Joe Alt is a giant. He is an absolute giant when you just see him in person, because you put it in context with other football players, with other starting NFL offensive linemen. And when he's standing next to Zion, it looks like he's a head taller than him. So you recognize that. Kamani Vidal. He is, and I know it's, and I hate when people compare receivers to Deebo Samuel, because there is only one Deebo Samuel, and I hate when people compare small backs to Darren Sproles, because there's only one Darren Sproles. But Vidal has that lower half, like what you're talking about with Junior. Vidal, man, he's compact. He might be the shortest player on the team, but he might be the widest. He is a moving rectangle, a refrigerator, a fire hydrant of a player, and you just kind of think about what made Sproles so good, so small. He was so strong, that lower half was so strong. And when he burst through that hole and no one could see him, he had enough punch to not just elude players, but to run them over. And that's something that jumps out at me about, Vidal. You see the height of Cornelius Johnson, even though he had a bit of a rough day yesterday, some drops out there, but you can just kind of see the way these guys, kind of what you're speaking to, Jeff, they're put together. We didn't get a chance to yesterday, just because of the way my schedule lined up with the Dodgers playing the day game. I was able to get out there, and unfortunately didn't get a chance to see, Ladd McConkey out there with the ones running. He was just kind of doing some drills and stuff. But, you watch him on tape and you just see how explosive he is. And I think there's a theme to this draft class, right? Like you said, Jeff, these guys are put together. The physical traits are there. The athleticism is there. There's like something to each one that just goes beyond the production that they had in their college careers.
Yeah, Jeff, that's a great segue into really, I feel like the main event in May and June is just conditioning. And you mentioned Zion and how big his biceps were, his first press conference. How about now? He's even bigger. And Ben Herbert has been the talk of this offseason program. We went at length about Ben in his press conference that went for 30 minutes and just getting these guys into peak physical condition during the offseason. Have you ever seen anything like that? Having a strength and conditioning coach talk that long and be such a central part of this program?
No, I thought it was really interesting that how many teams even have their strength and conditioning guy talk to the media, in a podium situation like the Chargers did. It just doesn't happen in any sport, really. So that just speaks to how important he is to Harbaugh, how important he is to the Chargers. It's the thing to remember. All this stuff's great, and I think you want guys like Ben Herbert as part of the program, but it's still football. The guys are still going to get hurt. So I hope everyone realizes this. You can't. Junior, first day we were out there at OTAs, like he's coming off with something. So stuff's going to happen, but it definitely is. It's definitely different. If anybody who's been out there this offseason, you can feel it. It's different when they're on the field. This fourth quarter closer thing that they do now at the end of practice, that's different. And that's Ben Herbert. And so it's definitely, it's one thing to talk about this stuff. And a lot of coaches talk about stuff. For the last 3 years, we heard Brandon Staley talk about a lot of things. Well, these guys are doing things, whether it's depth, whether it's, you're doing all the stuff for the players. We hear that all the time. Well, these guys actually are doing. We know they're doing everything they're doing is for the players to make it easier, make it better, make their work environment better. And I think part of that is going to be they're going to be asked to do a lot. Harbaugh is not going to. This is a different animal than what some of these guys have probably had for a little while, especially these guys who've been in the NFL. I think there's going to be moments in training camp where some of these veterans are going to be looking at each other going, what is this guy doing? Like, what are we doing? Like, we're really pushing here. And I think you're going to see, some things, and we may hear some things in training camp where guys, I don't want to say they're complaining, but there may be some eye-opening moments. We've already heard, Denzel Perryman talking about asking the Michigan guys, how much did you guys run? I'm sure he heard stories about this is a regimen that these guys are going to go through. And, and you're a guy like Perryman who's been in the league for a long time, he's asking these young guys, hey, what did you guys do? How hard was it? How difficult was it? Chris Hinton on this team, talked to him about how tough it can be. He was at Michigan with Harbaugh, and he'll tell you, some of these players are they may not like this. They're gonna be good. They're gonna get better, but it's gonna be tough. And I think that's all part of it's the transition. And I think that's all part of why Harbaugh is the way he is. And he tries to be, a player's coach. It's a player-friendly environment. We've heard that term a lot. And I think it's all because these guys are going to be asked to do a whole lot, and a lot of physical stuff, a lot of mental stuff, and it's not going to be easy. And training camp's going to be tough for some of these guys. I think it's going to be a little bit of a wake-up call for some guys who, aren't necessarily used to what they're going to be being put through.
Yeah, you mentioned something there, Jeff, and for people that don't know or haven't read, some of the stories about OTAs so far, you mentioned the fourth quarter. So, if you're not following along, or if you haven't heard, and this is the first you're hearing of it, it's pretty cool. So they go through a full almost 2-hour practice. There's 11 on 11, 7 on 7s, individual drills, stretches. At the end of it all, they huddle up, they have their inspiring message, they break, and then music comes on for the first time, and there's about 15 minutes of work, basically a fourth quarter, right? 15 more minutes where you've got sleds with 3 plates, so 135 pounds, and belts, and you're pulling those. And you better believe there's a certain someone with a whistle around his neck and khakis and a polo that's got a belt around his back, and he's pulling it too. Harbaugh is right in the middle with the players, pulling that 135 pounds, working on his quads and his hammies and making sure they're strong and ready to go. And then you've got this medicine ball carry. I think it's like a 30-pound medicine ball where you're doing, jogging with that. And then the defensive players are flipping basically the old, bulldozer tires, but now it's a bit of a, kind of different sort of device that mimics that. And that's that's we've talked about this, Chris. These guys are treading water for 3 quarters, and in the fourth quarter, Michigan pulls them under, and that's what this is. And the training is one thing. That's fine, and it's interesting and it's cool. And to me, Jeff, like, the big thing is the enthusiasm. Like, these guys just went through an hour 45, and as soon as that music hits, they all just start kind of hollering, and they're like, fourth quarter, here we go. And there's a bounce in their step, and it's like, you would think they would dread it, but they look forward to it. Like, it feels like they're looking forward to it. Like, all right, this is it. This is the fourth quarter. This is where we make our bones. And it's like they respond to that. And I think it's also reflective of this is the third coaching regime that I've seen since I've been with the Chargers. And everybody does it differently, and there's different ways to do it. I can't imagine Bill Belichick does it this way, and he's arguably the most successful coach in the history of football. But, the players come out first, and then like 5 minutes later, the coaches come out like it's college football, man. Like, they're coming out of the tunnel, and they are sprinting, and they're high-fiving, and they come out with this enthusiasm after the players have already hit the field. So it's almost like they can see, hey, here's the guys that are going to be barking at you for the next 2 hours, but they're really excited to be here, and they're excited to go through this with you. And there's just, to borrow the term, it's not just lip service. There is an enthusiasm unknown to mankind, not from just Harbaugh, but all of these coaches. And I think it helps breed what Jeff's talking about, that, hey, this is going to get tough, but we're in it with you, and we're going to be in the middle of it with you, and it's for good reason, and you'll understand why. Just kind of come along with us step by step, and trust us to where we're taking you.
And Jeff, you bring up a great point, because I look forward to hearing Khalil and Joey and some of the veterans on this team who have gone through, a Brandon Staley OTA or Coach Lynn, like as Money said, the 2 administrations before Jim Harbaugh. But the guys that we've talked to, whether it's been rookies from Michigan or guys like Hayden Hurst and Gus Edwards, to a man, it's almost like they take pride in the fact that they're going to play football like this. Like, we're going to play physical, and you're not going to want to play us. I think that's the one kind of phrase I've heard from a lot of different players. You don't want to play the Chargers, and for 60 minutes, we're going to make you feel it for the next week.
Yeah, completely. That's and I think if you think about football, most of these guys, that's probably how they grew up playing. I mean, right? It's sort of old schoolish, but it's that kind of almost, Money said, like college. It is. It's sort of collegiate, sort of almost high school. Everybody rallying, and we're all, which is, you don't always see in the NFL. And as Money said, it's 100% right. This isn't necessarily the only way to do this. There are other ways of doing it. This is just the way that's worked for Harbaugh. But so this is what he's. I am sure this is what he's done everywhere he's been, and this is probably what his dad probably did this. This is probably where this all comes from. It goes back to his father, who was a coach for years, and I think it's him engaging in the drills himself. It's not just a former player being goofy and doing this. I think part of that is he's showing these guys, I'm 60 years old and I'm doing this. Right. I'm doing the same stuff we're asking you to do. I'm out here doing it. I don't think that's by accident. And he's showing these guys, I'm here with you. We're all in this together. And I think, that stuff, I mean, all that it's kind of corny and it's sort of goofy, but I do think even professional athletes, these guys grew up with this stuff. I'm sure they appreciate it. I think it does resonate on some level. And how many guys have we interviewed this offseason have made reference to Harbaugh? Well, he played in the league. He played in the league. They all that means something. And and so I think what you're seeing is these players they appreciate where he's coming from, and I think it's pretty clear that if you play for this guy, he has your best interest at heart, because he knows if you're good, the team's going to be good. It's going to look good. He's going to look good. So he's a guy that you could definitely see why guys would like to play for him, want to play for him, why all these guys that talk about him, talk about how much they love playing for him. And even if it is difficult, and even if it is tougher than some of these guys are used to, there's definitely, it's easy to buy into what this guy's selling, and not only based on his history, his successful history he's got, but just the way he is. And, and he's a player. He's a player, accomplished player who's now a coach. He's not some guy that's just came up through the ranks as a coach. And he's a player first, and he's still, I think, at his heart, a player. Now he's the one with a whistle around his neck.
Yeah, I think there's something that jumped out at me, and I think this, I'm feeling like I'm building off of it. It's just more about just the Harbaugh style of coaching, Chris, that you get to see while you're out there. Because, there's so many things you can watch. There's individual drills. The defense is, to my left, way over there. The offense is, over here's O-line, and here's running backs, and here's wide receivers. So you're trying, there's a million things you're trying to follow, and there's a million things you can follow, whatever you decide to focus on. But like couple moments just pop, right? And you always hear about, treat the superstar the same way you treat the receptionist when you walk in, and respect respect the organization, respect that everybody's here to do a job, and they're just doing the job that they've been asked to do. And I think that's something we've always heard about Harbaugh that he's done. And I just saw it illustrated so perfectly where, he's got almost 100% participation. There were 5 guys, missing yesterday, the most interesting ones being Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. But so you've got 4 quarterbacks out there, right? I don't know if 3 are going to make the team, let alone a 4th. And Casey Bauman, who's, undrafted, I just want to make sure I got it, undrafted free agent out of Augustana, right, is out there, and he's barely getting any reps, but he's the QB for this run drill. And Harbaugh's on the other side of the field, and he's, trying to keep track of everything that's going on, and he makes a beeline. And Bauman happened to be right in front of me, so that's why I kind of picked up on it from where I was standing. So he comes over to Bauman, and he must have spent, 2 solid minutes with him. I know it sounds like a small amount of time, but it feels like an eternity, and he's just trying to show him the way that he should be handing the ball off. And he's talking about his footwork, and Bauman gets it, and he's like, is that it? And Harbaugh's like, no, that's not it. We got to do it like this. And it's a solid 4 or 5 repetitions of this to a guy that's the 4th quarterback, an undrafted free agent, but he's coach. And he's like, hey, man, you're here. We appreciate you being, what's he always say? Hey, we want competitors. When you show up, compete, and you'll be respected. Bauman's out there competing. And with a million different spots he could be, with Derwin James over here, and Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack here, and Justin Herbert's here, and there's your O-lineman, your big number 5 overall pick in Joel. He's talking to someone who's got very close to 0 chance of making this team, maybe not even making the practice squad, but hey, this is the way you should do it. This is the right way to do it, and this is going to help you. This is going to help you become a better quarterback. And I think that just illustrates, just what this is to him. It doesn't matter what your name is, what your number is, what slot you are. Let's coach you up. You're here. You're competing. Let's make sure we give you the resources to get better. And I'll just quickly just kind of add to that as maybe a jumping off point for you. The other thing that stood out to me is, when you go to these OTAs or you go to training camp, what do all the quarterbacks have on? on, a red penny or something, right? Not the case. Justin Herbert has on a gold jersey. The only gold jersey out there. The offense is in white. The defense is in blue. Special teams, the specialists are in white. And Justin Herbert is in gold. Easton Stick is not in gold. Max Duggan is not in gold. Casey Bauman is not in gold. And I think that sends a message, of kind of what we've heard about Herbert and maybe how he leads a little bit more by example, how he may not be the most vocal. Harbaugh's like, no, you are QB1. You are the leader of this team. You are the only one out here with this gold jersey on. Look around and recognize that this position, that this is different. You're going to get treated the same. You're going to get coached the same. But please recognize as you look around, there's only one guy out here with that gold jersey on, and it's you. And I think that's my interpretation, that it's a subtle message of you are different. You are different, and you are our leader, and you're the gold one. You're the golden child. So accept that. Embrace it.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to talk about Herbert, but one of the things you mentioned, both you guys mentioned, is just like some of these like stolen moments in OTAs. Jesse Minter was mic'd up, and to hear Coach Harbaugh go up to him and say, "Hey, it's Thule. He's at the front of every drill, And he went back to him again. He's like, Thule's still doing that? He's still at the front? He goes, I'm going to say something in front of the team. I'm going to mention that. Those are like the little things that you see how Harbaugh operates as a coach, and it kind of segues into Money and Jeff. Maybe the strength of this defense this upcoming season is these edge rushers. I know you wrote about Bud Dupree, Jeff, and to have Khalil, Joey, Thule, and Dupree. Jesse Minter, I think, has identified the strength of this team and what they want to do in terms of finding mismatches and getting after the quarterback with these four guys.
Oh, completely. And, you want to talk about a moment that, like, I think really sort of defined that or illustrated that this is a different offseason, this is a different regime, was Bud Dupree even being a Charger. That wouldn't have happened. I've been around the team from the second year they've been in LA. That never would have happened in the past. That signing was not going to happen. They wouldn't have been in a position to sign him. They wouldn't have pursued him. That to me, that day, when they got a guy who, it clearly is on the backside of his career, but is still a player and has done some things in this league. When they are investing in that guy and he's coming here to be the third, at best the third, fourth edge rusher, that tells you something about Bud Dupree. It tells you also something about what this roster and what they're trying to do. And that's when I talked about, like, you can discuss these things and say, this is what we're about, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Or you can do that, and then you can follow it up with your actions. And that Bud Dupree signing, to me, for a signing in May, the middle of May, that I thought that said a lot about what these guys are about. I mean, they brought in a guy who I expect to do some stuff this year. He'll contribute not in a minor way. And I think what that does, and specifically to this edge group, you're seeing this now, and we saw it some last year, and you're going to see it a lot, is you've got three of these guys on the field at the same time. And you've got two guys on the edge, and then you got that third guy, and it could be any one of those guys moving around. And we saw Thule doing some of it yesterday. We've seen it with, Khalil and Joey in the past, where they, you get these guys line up on the same side and have another guy on the other side. And I think all of that is designed clearly, it's pressure the quarterback. That's what this is going to be. That's what they're doing. And I think part of it too, if there's a position group to have some concerns about, it would be the secondary. Well, one way you can make that secondary better is get to the quarterback. And I think, I think once they were able to get Khalil and Joey to stay and worked out their contract situations, so they knew they were going to be on this team, I think immediately Joe Ortiz, the GM, and Harbaugh went into the mode of, okay, that's now going to be, we've got those two guys. We know we got Thule. That's going to be our strength. We're going to build off of that. We're going to, build on that front. The whole idea, it leans into the whole being like tough, aggressive, pounding team. They've talked about that since they got here. This new leadership group on offense. Now they're doing the same thing on defense. It's what they've done. That front, led on the edges is what they're trying to build this thing around. And Bud Dupree said it yesterday. He's been in the league almost 10 years. He's never been in a position group like this. I mean, he played with T.J. Watt, who's like one of the best of all time with the Steelers. But it was the two of them. Now, you look at, Bud and Thule could be starters for a lot of teams, and that's not terrible, But those are the two backup guys. Those are 3 and 4 behind, two guys who have been among the best in the league when they're on the field. They're among the best in the league over the last decade. So I think that's I think once they got both those guys back, once Khalil and Joey were in, I think that's when they realized, okay, that's our strength, and that's where we're building from off of that.
I think, you speak to just how it's different, Jeff. They came out of the draft, and that was the number one issue. It's like, okay, they got the O-line, you got a linebacker, you got, your receiver in Ladd McConkey, probably still want an X, maybe a legitimate, outside, can beat press, speed receiver, and they did not do anything to edge. So, and what did they do? Bang. Bud Dupree, potential double-digit sack guy, pretty big number, 2-year deal, solid salary. You go out and get him. A lot of competition for his services, and the Chargers land him. And you get DJ Chark, a legit 6'3", 4'3", has played X his whole career, beats press man, and there's your two pretty big holes that are filled with, decent salaries, not giant long-term contracts, but considering what's available, solid numbers. And I suspect they're going to do it again, Chris, just after June 1st. That's why I think they have not gone out and signed Johnson or Simmons or, Xavier Howard or whomever, or Stephon Gilmore. I think they're probably like, okay, I think those guys are still going to be there. Let's wait post June 1. And I won't be the least bit surprised. And I think the one thing you should get used to with this team as well, and this is what the Leatherwood signing screams to me, because we know firsthand how bad he was his rookie year. We got to see it up close and personal. Basically kicked him inside from tackle to guard after he played the Chargers. But I think it's the bottom of the roster. It's something that we weren't used to seeing, where throughout the course of the season, every single week, it's like, hey, this might not be 1 or 2 on the depth chart, but is this better than number 53? Is this person better than number 49? And I think that's what Leatherwood is. It's like, is he a top 6 O lineman? No. But is he the 7th best? We're going to probably carry 8. So, or maybe 9, so can he be OL number 7, OL number 8? Because if he is, he's making the team. And so that's one of those things, when that you're not comparing him to Trey Pipkins or Jamari Sawyer. You're comparing him to Foster Sorrell and Brennan Hymus and Jordan McFadden. Like, that's what we're talking about. I think that's something we need to get used to, that we're not, that this is all about depth and making sure that, numbers 45 through 53 are the best they can possibly be. And if they're not, on to the next one. And I think that's what we're going to start to see throughout the course of the season, is every week potentially a signing like that improves your depth and makes you feel a little bit better in case of emergency break glass, or the way this team's going to play is Leatherwood your best 6th offensive lineman to put out there, or you're set, because they're going to run those packages. They're going to run 6 O-line or 7 O-line like we saw at Stanford. And that's going to, and maybe he's best in that situation because he's big and strong. And yeah, he's not a tackle, he's not a guard, but let's put him in that little 6 spot and we're good and go. So I think that's something that it's worth keeping an eye on.
Money, it's a fantastic point, because we talk so much about the stamina, right? And this, what plagued this team the last several years, not a lot of depth at key positions, especially late in the season, and then the fourth quarter, and not being able to sustain and hold a lead, right? So by conditioning this team to play 60 minutes of football and say, hey, there's no surprises. This is how it's going to be. And then finding those key depth pieces, because I would argue that not only is Bud Dupree, someone you compare with Joey and Khalil, but hey, with the injury history of Joey, specifically the last couple of years, to have a guy like that who could step in and be a starter, as Jeff mentioned, like those are the types of signings that I think can really help this team down the stretch. If Khalil or Joey has to miss a month, let's say, you could plug in Bud Dupree across Joey or Khalil or Thule. And then some of these signings that Ortiz has made this offseason, I think J.K. Dobbins is the biggest one. Kind of just the upside, for a guy like that. You don't have to pay him a lot. He's got a lot to prove. And if he proves it, he's going to get paid, but you're also going to win. So I think the depth and, Money and I have talked about all throughout the free agency period. Okay, well, they got this guy and this guy, but we still need to identify this position group and this position group. And Money, you said it's, hey, be patient, right? Free agency is all off season. And then right after the draft, what happens? You get DJ Chark, you get Bud Dupree, and there's still a lot of guys out there that I think could help this football team, Jeff.
Oh, completely. And I'm 100% with what Money said, that I wouldn't be shocked at all if there's a couple more coming here, and it'll, and it's going to be the same, at the end of training camp. Guys are going to get released, and don't be shocked if there's some moves there. It's kind of like, it reminds me a little bit of what you're seeing in baseball now, where these, years ago in baseball, it was a big deal when a team made a roster move. Now teams make moves every day, and the Dodgers are the kings of it. I mean, they famously will sign a guy if they think he can be the 40th best guy in the team. If he can make the 40-man roster, they'll go get him. It's a guy you're sitting there thinking, well, who is this? Why'd they do this? What's happening? Well, it's a master plan, and now you're seeing it with what Joe Ortiz is doing. The same thing where, I don't know how many times I've asked him, and he's already told me, it never ends. Like, player acquisition doesn't end. It's constant. They are constantly looking for guys. And I think the Leatherwood is a perfect example of that, where there's no risk involved in bringing this guy in, and maybe they'll find something. And, obviously he was a first round pick, not that long ago. So there's something in there, and maybe he becomes that extra lineman. And, as Harbaugh had said, during the draft process or somewhere around in there, we were talking to him, and he said he kind of jokingly, but not, in Harbaugh's way, he said, I'd play 5 tackles if I could, 5 offensive tackles. Yeah. That's what I want. So don't be surprised when they go get him, and they, that's when he said that immediately signaled to a lot of us, well, Trey Pipkins is going to be moving to guard probably, because it's like, if they're going to bring in Joe Alt and Trey's going to play, he's going to have to play guard, right? So when Harbaugh said that, I think to a lot of us that was like, okay, yeah, they're going to look at Trey at guard, just because he values that size and that physicality and all that stuff, and like, Leatherwood's is just a perfect example of, the kind of guys that they're going to bring in here, and if it works, great. If it doesn't cost them. This isn't some, like I said, there's no downside to bringing a guy like that in. You can look at him, and if it's not going to work, they'll move him out and they'll bring in somebody else. So I do think, like Money said, it's going to be, this isn't going to end. That's not just Ortiz saying that. He means it. Like, this is not going to end. It's going to be a constant thing, and we're going to see things up into training camp. We're going to see things in training camp, and then I am 100% convinced, between the end of training camp and this season starting, we probably will see some more roster moves being made by this group.
And I think the thing is, Chris and Jeff, is, look, they're not all going to hit, but one of them will. Maybe 2 of them will. Yep. Like yesterday, and this is something we talked about, Chris, Hayden Hurst put on a freaking show yesterday. I mean, he put on a show. I'm not talking about just making, casual check down receptions, or he's got the corner on his outside hip and he's catching the ball in the ceiling. I mean, this dude is breaking off routes, in cuts, diving for balls, leaping for balls. And he was And like Jeff said, in the case of Leatherwood, this is a former first-round pick. This is a guy that was drafted ahead of Mark Andrews, when Baltimore took those 2 tight ends. So will it be Hayden Hurst? Don't know. Will it be J.K. Dobbins? Don't know. Will it be Alex Leatherwood? Don't. But chances are, based on the evaluations and what all of these people thought of these players coming into the league based on where they were drafted or where they likely would have been drafted, they weren't taken by the team, that it didn't work. That's what they're doing. They are taking chances on players that, and my guess is either A, they coached already and they know their work ethic and they know they can be valuable, or B, they had high grades on based on what their evaluation was with them. And football is so circumstantial, and you are a product of your environment. It is 11 chess pieces moving together, and so much of that can determine your success or failure that you're willing to take those swings. And it's why first-round picks continually get chance after chance after chance, even if they've already proven that for whatever reason it was just too hard for them. It was too big of a jump and they couldn't make it. But it's because of that evaluation. Like, no, we know what's in there. Let's see if we can get it out. And I think it's obvious that that's what this team did, that there are so many of those signings that Christian Fulton, high second-round pick, Alex Leatherwood, first-round pick, J.K. Dobbins, high second-round pick, monster rookie season, Hayden Hurst, first-round pick. There's a lot of that. Bud Dupree, first-round pick. There's a lot of that out there. And again, are they going to hit on all of them? Probably not. Are they going to hit on some of them? Probably.
Also, who was in a worse situation last year than Hayden Hurst and DJ Chark? With a rookie quarterback, with a coach who was fired a few games into the season, with an offensive line that couldn't block anybody. I mean, they were in a lose-lose situation in Carolina, and all of a sudden they get thrusted into an opportunity where you're going to have a good offensive line. You have a top 5 to top 7 quarterback in the NFL throwing you the football. And I think it's also, like Money said, it's a product of your environment. Joe Ortiz, he knows Hayden Hurst. He evaluated Hayden Hurst. They drafted him for a reason. And I'm sure there's a lot of guys who are on this roster that Joe really liked coming out of school. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are guys that he knows. So it's a combination of these Ravens, Jeff, but also players that I think strategically, hey, they weren't either put in good situations last year. We think we can make them or allow them to thrive in this environment, or B, like guys we really liked coming out of school, and we think with Jim Harbaugh coaching them, they could be good players.
Yeah, I think Hayden Hurst and Dobbins are the 2 most interesting guys, I think, in this conversation we're having, because they both have done things on the field that illustrate that they belong in the NFL and they can be legit starting,
potential Pro Bowlers.
Yeah, exactly. Potentially, have Pro Bowl production if you don't make the Pro Bowl. But that's what they can do. Well, in the case of Dobbins, he's just had a ton of injuries and significant injuries, not nagging things. So he has to be able to stay healthy and stay on the field. And if he can, I think we're going to see. There's no reason not to think that he can't be what he was as a rookie. A big guy who scored a lot of touchdowns. He and Edwards were. I mean, they gained 1,500 yards together that season, double-digit touchdowns together. I mean, I think that's exactly what the Chargers want. In the case of Hayden Hurst, if this guy's if he's going to thrive in the NFL, this is the setting right here, right now, because he has a quarterback. He's in an offense that if they can get production from the tight end, they're going to go to the tight end, because that's what the Ravens have done, right? For Charger fans, one thing to, I think, realize about this offense, we're not going to see the Austin Eckler production from a running back getting receptions. They don't throw a ton to the running backs. They look at Dobbins and Edwards, look at their history, look at their careers in terms of receiving. Even during Dobbins' rookie year, when they were so productive, neither one of them were big, factors in the pass game. Okay, so the days of the Chargers having a running back with 70 receptions or whatever, that's not happening. So those catches have to go somewhere. They're not going to Keenan Allen. He's gone. They're not going to Mike Williams. He's gone. Okay. So if Hayden Hurst, and money is 100% right. If you didn't mention it, I was going to mention what we saw yesterday. That was impressive. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and I don't always know what I'm watching on the football field, but even I was like, wow, Hurst is doing some stuff out there today. So if he can do some of that stuff we've seen those highlights and we know he's done that stuff in the past. If he can do that, he has a potential that this could be a really big season for him. And it could really restart his career. The one thing we obviously have to watch with him is he had that really super serious concussion last year, very scary situation. And let's hope, just as human beings, that he can avoid any of that stuff and can actually stay on the field and fulfill the potential that made him a first-round pick a few years ago. But Chris, you said it. I think this is the setting for him to, he must be really fired up about what he sees around him and he knows the quarterback he's got, and he knows the potential that's there, and knows that there isn't a receiver on this team that's going to have 100 catches for 1,200 yards. That's not happening right now. As we're looking at this roster, that guy doesn't exist. So those catches have to go somewhere, and a guy like Hayden Hurst, I think, has a chance to really reestablish himself as, I'm not going to say he's going to be Mark Andrews, but he could be, he could be a guy that people are like, oh yeah, I forgot about him. He's still in the league because he's had some issues of late where he hasn't been able to fulfill that promise. But I could see that guy making a lot of highlights and scoring some touchdowns and making some big catches for this team if he can stay on the field, stay healthy, and if he can, they're going to lean into him a ton.
Yeah, I think there's one theme to all of this, right? And I think and again, we're biased. Well, you're not, Jeff, but Chris and I are. I think they can win a lot of games this year. I truly believe that. There is one caveat though that you have to insert. Can they stay healthy? Every one of these players that we're talking about, it's if they stay healthy. And that's why they got him on these prove-it deals, because of J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins is an incredible back, explosive, powerful, can catch the ball to the backfield, is good in pass pro. He is a great back, like potential top 5 back. He's not been able to stay healthy. DJ Chark is a 4'3", 6'3", can beat press man, ex-receiver, has not been able to stay healthy. Hayden Hurst, you mentioned the concussion. Like, that's Bud Dupree has had serious injury concerns, and he addressed that yesterday in the presser and how he's tried to overcome the injuries that he's had to deal with throughout the course of his entire career, and how he hopes he figured something out last year in Atlanta, and why he was able to stay out there and get that sack production that he got and that pressure production. So this is going to be on Ben Herbert and his staff, because they have signed a whole bunch of incredibly talented players that have not been able to stay healthy. Denzel Perriman has not been able to stay healthy. He's his own worst enemy. He's so damn fierce, and he's such a thumper that he knocks himself out of games. So, like, that's what, to me, just out there watching it, I'm like, yeah, that's what this is going to come down to. Ladd McConkey was I think a high teens to low 20s draft pick. I don't think there's any question. The routes that he runs, the explosiveness that he has, the team that he played on and still got all those targets and had that production, he just couldn't stay on the field. So, like, that's ultimately that to me is what will determine what this season is. Like, I watched this roster, the way it's put together, watching them out there. That's kind of what I've decided. That's the conclusion I'm at right now. This is a good team. This is a solid roster. I am a little worried about the secondary specifically, and that's Christian Fulton too. This is a good. You can't even watch Christian Fulton film from last year because he was hurt the whole season. Even when he was out there, he was dealing with injuries. So, like, that's what this will come to. I think they probably still need a little bit of help in the secondary, but that's what it is. They signed a bunch of guys that are really good that have not been able to stay healthy, and if they can, should be a pretty good team.
Yep. Well, let's end with this, because, Bunny, you mentioned it. Justin Herbert's the only one wearing that gold, number 10. Jeff, how important is this season for Justin Herbert, given the fact that you've had a different offense seemingly every year you've been in the NFL? Now another coaching staff, another offensive coordinator, another new way of playing football. No Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams. Everything is going to be different for him, yet all that pressure remains on his shoulders.
Yeah, it's going to be the thing that's really different for Herbert is they're not going to ask him to throw for 350 yards every game. They don't need him to do that. They don't want him doing that. That's not how they're built. That's not how they want to play. And what they're going to want from him is efficiency. They're not going to want week in, week out big time numbers. And I don't think if that's happening, then it's not going the way Harbaugh designed it. And because they want to run the ball, they want a quarterback who can be real efficient, take care of the ball, and then make the plays when they need to be made. In the fourth quarter, when they need that one throw, when they need that one convert third down with your legs, that's when they're gonna look to Justin Herbert to save the day. Not from the first quarter, not from the opening kickoff, and it's it's on Herbert. So I think what they're doing, Chris, is they're trying to build this thing so that the pressure's not on Herbert. So he does not feel like he's going into the game and he feels like he has to he can't take a chance because he can't turn it over, or he has to take all the chances because if he doesn't do it, nobody's going to do it. So they've gone away from that. They're trying to do the exact opposite of that. So it's that thing where they're hoping if they ask him to do less that they're going to get more out of him. And that's what Harbaugh has done. That's the Harbaugh strategy. That's the Harbaugh way of playing, of winning football games. And he's done it with some really good quarterbacks, as we all know, in college and in the NFL. These guys so it's not like he doesn't need a quarterback. He just doesn't need the quarterback to be. He doesn't need hero ball from his quarterback, and he's trying to avoid getting into that situation. And I don't need to explain what that looks like to Charger fans because they've been seeing that for going back before Herbert, going back to Phillip Rivers. They've been seeing that hero ball thing where they try they need the quarterback to make all the plays. They're going to need Herbert in the fourth quarter to make those plays. But to getting to that fourth quarter, their plan, their idea is it's not going to be just Herbert. It's going to be Herbert with everybody around him, and with this running game and all this pressure that he shouldn't feel that pressure you're talking about, Chris. Now it's going to be there, and everybody points to the quarterback. If they what's everybody say about Herbert? He's never won a playoff game. Well, yeah, you're right. He's been in one, and they should have won that one, but he didn't lose that game. They lost that game in part because they couldn't run the ball in the second half. Right. We all know that. So that shouldn't be. If this works, that won't be the case in this season. They're going to be able to put games away late, and then, like I said, I think what's going to define this season for Herbert, it's going to be those fourth quarter moments when he's able to make a play. We've seen him do it, and if he can make those plays and not have to do it every single week, and make those plays when they need them in key moments in the fourth quarter of these games, either with a pass or a conversion of third down, whatever it is, a decision he makes, all that success the team has, it's all going to reflect on him. And I think eventually, all the numbers, all that stuff, those things will all take care of themselves. And no one's going to care if he doesn't have as many passing yards, as many touchdown passes, if this team's winning and getting into the playoffs and doing all those things that Harbaugh's teams have always done in the past. If he can bring that here, people are going to look at Herbert as being a successful quarterback, even if his personal stats aren't maxed out to what we know he can do. But we've seen that, and it hasn't led to any real success on the field yet for him. So there is that pressure on him, but I think the idea is let's take that pressure off him. So anything he feels, he's just putting on himself and his own high expectations he has for himself.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, Jeff. Not a lot to add there. The only thing I would, Chris, is is just say, like, they better be able to run the ball. That's it.
Yep.
It's a team that has not been able to run the ball for a decade, since essentially, LaDainian Thomas a little bit with Ryan Matthews there, but, they've not been able to run the ball. And this team has to run the ball. It's how they are built. So they're going to have to reverse a 7, 8 year, 9 year drought of not having been able to run the ball. That will be the most important thing. And that's because that's what they're building. They want to be bullies. They've built up the offensive line. They're training those guys to go forward more so than backwards, and it better work. It better work because that's what this thing's built on. Now, I'm sure if it doesn't, they'll be able to adjust, but that's not what they want to do. And then, Jeff put it perfectly. That's what they want to do. Run the ball, run it effectively, play great defense, create turnovers, choke the team out. And if it's still tight in the fourth quarter, all right, Herbo, your time, man. Better to need it and not have it than to have it, better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And that's always been his philosophy. And that's why J.J. McCarthy got drafted number 11 overall. Because even though the numbers weren't there, he was called upon to win games multiple times late in games. All right, here we go. Training wheels are off. It's all yours, JJ. Go get it. And he went out and got it. So I think it's very similar to that. Same thing, throughout his entire career. That's the way Harbaugh has always operated. Let's see if we can get up big in the first half and then just bleed the clock in the second half by running the ball. If it's tight, all right, let's go. You're up. Second half is yours. Let's go win a game. But they better be able to run.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff, you mentioned you have to get a lift in, but you were on the fence. Did this podcast motivate you to get that workout in?
All I had to see was Money's shirt. Money's shirt got me going. I'm ready to go. That's my motto all the way.
There we go. Music guitar shop in Nebraska, out Hank's Guitar Center in Falls City, Nebraska. Be good
Shout
to your
out to
wood.
Hanks.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Jeff, you're
May
the
it
best.
motivate everybody today.
Yeah. Should we get Hanks to sponsor us this season?
Why not, man? Why not? You want to flip me a Les Paul or a Schecter or a sweet Steve Vai Ibanez with a handle in it? Let's go.
We'll trade. We'll do a little barter with Hanks.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff, appreciate your time, man. As always, good to catch up with you. Marty, I'll see you next week as we continue OTAs and mini camp coming up here in a couple of weeks. And then we take a little summer break and back at it for training camp. So for Jeff and Money, I'm Chris. This has been Chargers Weekly.